Good morning, Professor Veit here. So I just wanted to come on and talk about my answers to the book club questions for part one. This is definitely an assignment that I'm doing right by your side. So um, I'm accountable for what I am asking you to do and excited about it. So I, our book club book. Obviously. So many thoughts and feelings. I just wanted to kind of backtrack a minute. I may have told you all this, but 2019, February of 2019, I would say would be a turning point for me in my journey to being an ally. I didn't even know what that looked like, but I had my eyes open here in a second. I'll tell you about that here in a second. And anti-racist practices, behaviors, language, etc. So um, in February of 2019, Austin Channing Brown came to town to um, the CBSW brought her to town or invited her to town. And they had a dinner. The CBSW members and alumni had a dinner with Austin on Friday night. And then on Saturday, she spoke publicly at the Nashville Public Library on her book. I can't remember when it came out. I Am Still Here. And now I'm blanking on the rest of it. Teal Green, I've read it twice. If you took me for groups, a couple of the chapters were in module 9 and 10, I think. But it was a turning point. It was a shift. My first, I've been doing it all wrong. I've been doing some of it wrong, most of it, all the things, all the gamut of emotions that come with potentially unlearning things you've been taught. For me, things you've been teaching, um, the ways I've been practicing. I don't, I don't think I severely harmed anyone along the way. I don't know. No one has reached out to say you've harmed me. I don't know if anybody would. But that being said, I wish I can think of examples where I'm like, oh gosh, I wish I could get in touch with that client and apologize. I don't know how I came off when I said this or when I did that, on and on and on. That was the turning point. Spent a lot of time reflecting on it, working to go to trainings, hard conversations, changing up some assignments, diving deeper into the course competency around DEI, and just trying to go through as much of the content as I could to make sure it matched. I'm rambling. I first discovered Dr. Mullen in December of 2020, just through Instagram and just kind of following along. And one of my colleagues in the field had told me about her, so I just kind of was following along. And I messaged Dr. Mullen. I feel like I could call her Jennifer. Just kidding. And just was like, I'm blown away. I am trying to do the work. I don't even know sometimes what work I'm trying to do because I feel like I'm just like saying that because we are like, I'm doing the work. What work are you doing? Right? Like what is it are you doing? Right? Um, wasn't until this past fall that I was introduced to the book by a colleague of mine who runs a nonprofit here in Nashville. Ashley Hampton, I'm allowed to use her name, owns and operates the private practice Hampton House. She and her partner started Healing in the Margins. So check out their nonprofit. Lots of different services they provide for clinicians, clients, members of the LGBTQI plus community in addition to the BIPOC community. So a blend of the two. And we just were kind of talking about it, and I thought, let me check it out. Truth be told, I switched gears and added this to our class sort of last minute. Kind of got a little pushback from call like, what are you doing? I hadn't read the thing from cover to cover. I got it. I was skimming different things, reading as much as I could, trying to find supplement, like a workbook. I don't think there is. Just doing what I could. Rereading part one in beginning of January, and then digging into part one with the book club questions last week. Um, I spent basically one evening reading part one. Took me a while, highlighting and all the things, and just diving into it. And I have to say, um, I enjoyed it, honestly. Like, do we always agree with everything somebody says? No. Would we ask more questions and for clarification about a section? Sure. But for the majority of it, most part, I really enjoyed reading it. I'm going to pull up my answers here in a minute. I've only started skimming the book club assignments that you all have turned in, and we are running the gamut of what everybody thought of it. So I'm going to include my response to that here in a minute. But um, again, I just wanted to say I'm accountable as well for doing this work alongside you. I've already dove into part two. I'll plan on grading this weekend, so I probably won't finish part two until next week. But we've got plenty of time until that book club. And there's going to be one more thing. I'm really glad this is the assignment. I am glad that this is a group assignment. I am glad I got rid of the assessment paper on a fictitious client. That would just be sort of like a pass go. I don't know how you feel about that. I'm sorry if you would rather be doing the group assessment assignment and then it's basically like a paper, or you do the assignment on your own and it's a huge, big thing. And I remain grateful that we are doing this assignment. Okay, I'm gonna shut up. I put my thoughts in a PowerPoint, of course, because I'm a dork. And yeah. So what were your takeaways? What were my takeaways? The first one that came to mind, I'm smarter than I think I am, and not an A, I'm so smart, but I get very intimidated by books where I feel like I'm going to have my Webster dictionary out for every other page. Um, we laugh. My family still says, like, oh, big words. So when anybody says this is very heady or cerebral, um, I get nervous about it. So that was one of my first hesitations, to be completely clear, was like, what if there's content that's going to be over my head? What if there's content that's going to be over my head? Right. And there was. I did look up a few words along the way. So, as a therapy practitioner working within the structure of MIC, I often ask, how can we make it better? Is there a way to co-create a system that infuses healing and not just treatment within an unwell and violent structural arrangement? Is there a way we can make it better? How can we make it better? What can we do? How can we help? I just kind of went back to this phrase whenever I was like, can it be better? What do we do within a treatment, within an unwell and violent structural arrangement or system? So I kind of came back to that as an anchor. We are all part of the problem and the solution. This has been further compounded by our mental health training. This really on a lot of levels, struck a nerve or a chord, because I think oftentimes we are taught more so that we're part of the solution and not like you are the solution, but we learn all these modalities. Could this be a solution? We talk about different ways for people to cope. What have do we incorporate that as the solution, as the healers, as part of all of our mental health training? Um, so again, we also talk about how we are the problem. Um, Reading this kind of made me go, how big of a problem? Talk a little bit about that more. And then lastly, safety is a privilege. I have never heard it phrased that way. Safety is a privilege. And that just like a flood of emotions came over me because I'm going to have to change some signage where I work, because just saying this is a safe space for who, right? For me, absolutely. But if I considered how it might not be safe for other individuals, if I even asked what can make it safe, it's just an assumption. And again, it's just a privilege to be able to feel safe walking into a counseling office, a doctor's office, psychiatric hospital, psychiatrist office, etc. Was there any content you had no idea about? All of it? Just kidding. A lot, a lot. And I did know, actually, now that I think about it, a little bit more than I did think, but for the majority, a lot of education, a lot of historical education. One reminder that I really feel like a lot of us need reminding of, and I can't remember what page it was on. I jotted it down and then I need to look it back up, but not all Black people grew up poor and in the inner city. Just like not all Black people feel anti-Black racism is a thing, nor do all Black folks feel they have experienced historical trauma. This is a reminder in one of her lists, but I feel like it's a good reminder. I feel like there becomes this focus on narrowing in a demographic, where they live, how they live, under the means which they live, and that is not always the case. Just like um, one of my colleagues who I've worked with for a very long time, not at UT, she was a former student, um, and who identifies as a Black brown female, said, I have not experienced historical trauma, and people just kind of assume I have. And can't remember if I had assumed or asked about it or even how the conversation came up, but I feel like, have I been assuming that? Um, and just kind of, making that assumption all along. Is that like an unconscious bias? Um, I don't know. Lots of thoughts around that. Never once had heard the term or word drapetomania, thus never having known what it meant. Um, Oof. And one of the lists, firm eye contact is used as an example in the animal patient metaphor. It was a reminder. So I did have an idea about that. Just a reminder. So it was a reminder that I needed to have more of an idea about that. I'll come back to that one in a minute. Never heard the term or heard of a white bath. And I read more about what it was. I researched it. I was like, do I need to take a white bath? What is a white bath? My curiosity was piqued. It does involve cold water or ice cold water. I have a hard time embracing anything that mentions cold. I know a lot of people cold plunging in ice baths and jumping into rivers and lakes and oceans when it's freezing. I've never done that. Um, this white bath adds other ingredients. I use the term marginalized communities all the time. When I was developing this PowerPoint yesterday, I said, I'm going to stop using marginalized communities and instead say intentionally exploited communities. I take that back. I'm going to ask which would be preferred. Because again, I think that this is one where I was like, well, I have a colleague that her nonprofit, the language is supporting working with inclusive access for marginalized communities. I was like, is she going to change all of her marketing information, or is that what she prefers? And I just need to ask about it. I feel like I'm making no sense. But once again, I had never heard the term intentionally exploited communities. Did any of the content make you feel guilty or frustrated? Shame. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I was frustrated at, at how I've been teaching the content of psychopathology, not all of it, and some of the language I've used that has hurt or affected my students over the years who are now my future colleagues, trying to go back and think about inclusive language in the PowerPoints. Obviously, we know the DSM is still um, male, female, very little regard for race, class, gender, etc. Have I continued to say, hey, I know that the DSM is not blah blah blah. Have I prefaced that? So I started kind of going back through. Blah. All transparency, I feel icky about this next one. I I feel selfish because I was like, I'm gonna have to continue. Here I go. I'm reading another book that look at what all I've done wrong. Um, and for like one moment, I was like, I'm just gonna put the book down and walk away. Is it worth taking on this guilt? Ew, gross. Um, that quickly, yes. And if I sit in the guilt and shame, like I've done in the past, then I'm gonna be distracted. So forgive yourself, get over it, move on, process what I'm feeling. Am I embarrassed? Am I like reflecting on something from a while ago that's coming up? What's coming up when I read a phrase and I'm like, I'll just never get it. Um, I feel tremendous guilt, perhaps assigning a book that brings shame or guilt to anybody. That was never my intention. Never my intention. So I was not like, I'm gonna just, have everybody sit in it and things like that. So I'm nervous about creating the book club papers because I'm gonna have to maybe face that. Or if someone's like, I hate it, this is the worst assignment ever, um, what have you. So I was frustrated sometimes with Dr. Mullen when I felt that her writing um, maybe had like an anger tone. But there were lots of times where I felt like she was offering grace, um, helpful and hopeful, um, which reminded me that perhaps what I consider to be anger is about somebody else's passion for a subject that I know nothing about. And I fear another member, um, and I fear a member, I'm messing this all up. Just someone pointing the finger at me, and we don't identify um, as part of the same subgroup, race, ethnicity, minority, community, what have you, and just is this finger at me? I never felt that necessarily like you are, but like, gosh, is this what I am? God, again, like Austin Channing Brown, one of her chapters, white privilege. It fluffed up a little and made me sick to my stomach, even thinking that way. And what I mean is, like, oh, I'm getting angry. Like, here I've done it again. Well, no, maybe, maybe I haven't all done it wrong, or maybe I haven't done it all wrong. But Um, where is that coming up? I'm starting to get a little nervous that I'm not making any sense and I'm offending somebody. I'm really speaking from the heart here, or the bottom pit of my stomach. Um, it has a family historical context that had me examine what I've heard over the years from my white family members, friends, and other social workers. And that just meaning like looking back and thinking the assumptions that people have made. Teachers, like that student, and why is that student? Why are you saying that that student behaves worse than this student? Why are you framing things like, well, because they're from the ghetto? I hate that. That's one that I feel uncomfortable about. I need to break that down. Or like, they're from the hood. Things like that that I feel like have been used over and over that are just because they're from here or live here, participate in this means they're going to act this way, behave that way, and do this and that. Um, Again, just kind of speaking right now, just off the cuff, but being completely honest with family members that have said things over the years. So, kind of examining my history of just what has been filtered through. I haven't maybe said anything along the way, even other social workers, right? I've been talking with another social worker about, are you going to put a statement on your website about diversity and inclusion, or, what you're doing? And she said, no, I'm scared it might offend people. Who would, who would it offend? Um, who wouldn't want to come in your office if you welcome all persons, regardless of, and then the list. Um, so yeah, that being another social worker. Affirmations. Okay. Lots of different ones along the way. I really liked these. These I wrote down in my journal. Um, I'm willing to breathe into where whiteness has closed me up. I let my light in through my emotional cracks. Really liked that one. I'm a child of my ancestors, and a good many of them suck. A few of them don't. Um, I'm willing to learn more about my ancestors and forgive myself for perhaps um, repeating language or uh, harmful behavior, um, and maybe forgive them. I am allowed to be angry with a profession that I still love. I'm not abandoning social work. I do not regret getting a social work degree, um, or my LCSW. I don't. I don't regret it. Reading this, was I like, crap, should I just get a life coach certificate? No, I wouldn't. I don't think that those certificates, I don't know, I haven't examined them. I don't know how in depth a life coach certificate or a trauma informed life coach certificate dives into um, content like this. I love good life coach, not my jam. I still want to be a social worker. My needs and emotions are allowed to change how I respond to things. Um, I grieve and take responsibility for the violence my field has engaged in. The field of social work has engaged in practices um, that are violent, harmful, etc. I grieve it and I need to work through it when it comes up, but I still can be a part of the profession that I chose. It's healthy to do things differently. Let's do things differently. Let's find another way. How can we make this space safe? Um, my feelings are complicated. I feel like everything I've just said sounded so complicated. And I'm having that like panic moment of like, what have I even said? Do I need to watch this 10 times, redo it? I need to sit in that. Small revolutions for care workers and space holders or practitioners. These are either ones I'm doing or aim to do. So co-create, participate in affinity groups for practitioners, facilitate and hold group and circles not related to a problem. I really liked that one. Discussing the most harmful rules and policies that your organization, your practice engages in, and create coalitions to abolish them and recreate new ways of helping. So going through our handbook, going through our signage, going through our language, going through our space. That's in process right now. Engage in outings and activities that do not include therapy as a focus for practitioners. Having fun together. Continuing to offer a stipend to interns. It's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of work, as we know. I'm gonna stop sharing. Okay, here. It is no secret that I work for a private practice here in Nashville. I am the owner, the operator, been operating it for 16 years, and I have just done it all wrong in some ways, okay in some ways, and I've done right in some ways. As far as their therapy team, we have increased our diversity little by little. We can do more as a company. Other thoughts? Oh, this book takes the DSM and just like puts whole, just slashes through it. I agree. I absolutely agree. So I was like, oh my gosh, was I thinking this through? Like, did I even make the correlation that this was like the DSM? Like, now here I am starting tomorrow, module 3. We're going to dive into diagnosing. I do not want to stop learning about criteria, specific diagnoses, etc., because it's still the language we use, whether you're a nurse practitioner, a life coach, right, or social worker, LPC, we're still going to be communicating using diagnostic criteria. To understand different diagnostic criteria means that you could perhaps advocate for a client or a patient if you are like, no, they don't qualify as someone who is oppositionally defiant. That might be all of our School of Social Workers, working with individuals from intentionally exploited communities. That could be where there could be some bias around behavior. Well, they're ADD, let's get them medicated. Let just, keep them quiet. School of Social Work, could we try this before we assign a diagnosis or have them go through testing? Could we try this type of intervention, that type of intervention? So we're going to continue to talk more about that each module, but I find I take so many issues with the DSM for sure. Absolutely. I do not think it is the best way to evaluate individuals. However, I do believe in mental health diagnosis and or treating the symptoms rather of major depression or bipolar, schizophrenia, substance use disorders, autism spectrum disorders, but finding ways to treat the individual and not throw everything at just a diagnosis. But how can we take this part of what might be the diagnosis and find a way to alleviate symptoms? Remember, it's not a cure. That's all. I feel like I should hit delete. Ah. But I wanted to be transparent with my thoughts, how, and not that anybody needs my thoughts or opinions, but just, you know what I mean? I just wanted to say that I'm doing the work alongside you. I'm not expecting you to read something that I'm not reading and digesting. Not how I work. Um, okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you for reading and digesting the book. If you have any questions, please, please, please let me know. Or if you have any feedback of this video, let's hop on a Zoom and talk about it. If you're like, you said that all wrong, absolutely. I probably said something wrong. I know I did. The eye contact. Oh my gosh. Okay. I grew up with eye contact, and like I knew my dad meant business when it was like, you look me in the eye right now, because he was going to have the solution. He was the expert. He needed to know that when we, by engaging in eye contact, that we understood him and we were going to do what he said. It was a sign of respect. You better look my grandfather, grandparent, aunt, uncle, better just look them in the eye. And we were a yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, thank you, please, yes, sir, family with some eye contact. And I do remember just thinking that was the way all individuals communicated, was eye contact. Um, and it doesn't mean that eye contact is wrong by any means, but it might not be culturally appropriate or sensitive, practicing of sensitivity to assume that. And I remember working with a family, I may have mentioned this, from India, and the dad did not make eye contact with me very purposefully. And I just was like, well, that's disrespectful. We're here, we are trying to work together, and I'm trying to see your reaction or look you in the eye. And he just diverted. And I did a lot to like kind of try to catch the eye contact. I don't think I was necessarily trying to assert like that same, like, you listen here. But I worried that, was I trying to prove myself? Like, I think your daughter is severely depressed. She said she was suicidal. Like, this is really serious. Those things are serious. She did express very, very strong suicidal ideation and had a plan, etc. And the parents did not believe her at all, thought she was making up stories. People from their family don't do that, don't think that way, never would. Maybe not. But I remember just trying to look and just I want you to hear me very clearly and let me look you in the eye. I don't know if I offended them. We worked together for years. We ended up making eye contact. And I think probably eye contact happened maybe over the course of safety. That just kind of hit me. So many, I'm just like, blah, but I'm having a revelation here. But just eye contact make me feel safer when I think we're on the same page. Because the eye contact I've made with individuals made them feel unsafe when I've kind of tried to maybe force it. I don't know. Okay, to be continued. I've gone on and on way too long. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please reach out with any feedback, thoughts, concerns. I hope that even if you're like, I hate this book, I don't like it at all, or I'm so sorry if you do. If you're struggling to get through it and it's heavy, it is absolutely. I find it being heavy. I do have to like take breaks and pauses. But I'll never know if you didn't read it, right? I'll never know. That doesn't say don't read it. But if it is too heavy for you, do what you need to do to take care of yourself. And I completely get it. I'm never going to say, did you or did you not read it? Um, I hope you continue at your comfort level. All right. I'm going to sign off before I just continue to blah, blah, blah. Okay. Have a good one.